Afternoon all. Welcome to this Strategic Planning Committee. Today, 15th of October. It is being recorded, so all and sundry to be starting off. Apologies.
Yeah, so we've had apologies from Councillor Brian Ellis, who's got a work commitment today.
Okay, good. Thank you for the call. Declarations of interest. Obviously I have a peculiar one, as I am a district councillor, which I believe I have to declare.
Why peculiar? Why peculiar?
Non-peculiar. Non-peculiar, yeah.
Sorry,
I have no financial interest, but I have a...
No, I've got you.
Chairman's report and urgent items. Have we got anything?
No, I haven't got anything to add.
No, good. Right, any questions that we've got?
Haven't received any.
No, good. Minutes, are you all happy with me to sign the minutes of the 1st of February? Those was all here? I think I was here. Good.
Thank you.
Good. Right, over to you.
Okay, thank you. So the business on this item is to agree the draft response, or agree the response to the St Albans local plan. The current consultation finishes on Wednesday at 5 PM. The draft that I sent round to you is our starting point for this discussion, and essentially it's a similar approach that we've used before, in that the neighbourhood plan, which is the council's kind of agreed document, which has now passed independent examination, is the basis for the draft response and the starting point to it. So the committee is asked today to consider the draft response, making the amendments that it sees necessary, and recommend approval and submission through to the district council ahead of their deadline on Wednesday.
Have you had any, sorry.
Yep.
Have you had any comments back from anyone else in the council?
Well, we haven't, no, so we did ask out to all councillors, but haven't received any contributions ahead of this committee.
So would you like to continue?
Yeah, I've got lots to go through, so I don't know whether or not, Nicola, you want to,
No, you
kick off. It's just basically to understand where we are with the, I suppose in particular the board locations. Ultimately they're going to affect North Harpenden and East Harpenden. Some of the things that I don't like about the policies, they're very similar, in as much as it's almost a one-size-fits-all policy for all the board locations. And considering that, in isolation, yes, it's only 550 or 580 in North West and 760 in North East, but cumulatively, we're talking about a sizable urban extension in Harpenden. And I don't particularly like the fact that we just take you through a few of, I suppose, the more important things. I don't expect you to agree with me at all, really. Anyway, here we go. It's a minimum number of dwellings, they're saying. So really and truly, that's just a minimum amount of development. So it could be, open-ended, could go on infinitum. You know what property prices are like here, you know what developers want. As soon as they've got planning permission for a certain amount, they then come back in for more. So we have no control about the number of houses that we're building in North and East Harpenden, and I don't know if anyone sort of thought of the implications of that, but I would rather see, up to 760, 580. That's one of my points.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. I think the only thing is that it is limited to the land that's available. unless we can.
Yes, but then that
Not
goes on to my
convert.
next thing, is that minimum 40 dwellings per hectare. So that's quite a high density. When you consider that, I think Batford Estate is probably like 25 dwellings per hectare.
Mm.
So they're going to, and if 40 is going to be the minimum,
Mm.
do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Then we start to have problems. So, you know, that is something that would raise alarm bells for myself, is that, you know, what kind of development are we going to end up here? It's, you know, depending on, you know, sort of taking into consideration the location of these two sites, they're within open countryside.
Mm.
Are we going to actually have high density of, you know, pack 'em and cram 'em in, basically, which is a lot of the sites that are happening in and around nationwide at the moment. I'm quite scared by the thought myself. So, you know, I'm going to be replying on behalf of the BTAG, because ultimately it's going to affect us considerably in Batford. So I'm going to be hoping that, you know, up to that amount rather than set as a minimum.
Right.
Another concern is that if we are going to have in excess of 760, we could have 860, we could have 1,060. We don't actually have any control over the design of these things, these dwellings through like design codes, which I think are quite important, so that they can secure a kind of rationale for each site. Depending, you know, like obviously next to the urban fringe you can have high rise, you know, higher rise, but actually on open countryside, wouldn't it be nice to have actually barn style, you know, sort of shiplap cladding and things like that? A design code would provide that. It would deliver a site which is actually integrated with the existing, you know, 1950s development and with the open countryside. Those are the things that, you know, I've been going through the other policies and they don't actually sort of highlight, may have missed them, I must admit, may have missed them, but it would be nice to actually have something robust within that policy to say that they, you know, could be built according to a design code.
What does this need to do with the planning application, though, rather than...
No, that's the problem. You see, you could have these sites developed
I'm only thinking of Oaklands. The Oakland development in St Albans, they were given a number on the site.
Is that the conservation area, though?
It's Greenbelt.
Oh, I see the other Oakland site.
The Oakland site that just started
Smallford.
developing, the Taylor
Smallford.
Wimpey is developing at the moment
Right.
in Smallford. That went through everything. You eventually end up with an inspector, which took miles too long to do, but that's another story. But that was controlled from the moment that it said 360 houses on the site. They didn't put an application in to increase the number, but they had to fit in their design to make sure that there were no more than 360 houses. And they're houses. You know, there's no 10-storey blocks of flats.
I hate to assume anything, though. I hate
Well,
to assume that we're
I
going
only
to
think
have...
that that's how it went through.
I know
as
that's...
a green
I don't
belt
disagree
development.
with you, David. I don't get to disagree with you at all. And like with my...
Well, I only use that as a
yeah,
comparison.
absolutely. And, you know, with...
No, I agree with what
I
you're
would
trying to say.
I would like to think that every house builder that actually goes on that site, and there may be many of them. Persimmon comes to mind. Not that I have any objection to some Persimmon housing. However, it is pretty standard, and it may fit certain locations, but might not fit in others. I would
No,
like
I know-
to have
I know
a little
there's
bit
a
more
preferred-
control over it.
I know there's a preferred developer for the Batfords, certainly for the, not the Bloomfield Road site, the site curving round Batford. There is and he is a reputable builder.
But he could sell it on, he could subdivide the site.
Well, I don't know, because there's three landowners involved in it, as I understand. So, you know, but...
you don't think the neighbourhood plan as it stands will govern all that?
Okay, you might just get, like, you might have it zoned, you might have it phased, you might get a development of 50 houses on that site, which would be a specific design, and then you might get another 50 houses in, you might get 100, because you've got no control over the numbers of those sites, really, and the density now. You don't know what you're going to get until you, and as we know, each application is assessed on its own merits. I'm obviously with the best will in the world, and I have every confidence that whoever takes those sites over is going to have, you know, due care and attention to the way their development is built, but I actually work in the real world where this doesn't happen on a day-to-day basis. You know, I approve planning applications daily, and they come back a month later and say, actually, we want to change the whole thing, we want to make higher density here because, you know, ultimately Brexit, this lack of confidence, we need to build out to the maximums. You know, do you have an objection? You don't have any control unless you've got a design plan that actually instigates, or you've got a net density, or, do you see what I mean? You've got nothing, you know, and as a decision maker, we're in a losing battle here.
I thought we did have stuff in
Well, you
there.
possibly do, but it would be nice to actually have this reflected in policy as well, because don't forget, you know, once this development plan is actually adopted, it becomes the statutory development plan, and a neighbourhood plan, you know, isn't, you know, we know we're not a decision-making local authority here, it's St Albans. So that's all. So I'm just putting it out there. It's entirely up to you how you take this. It's just that these things are, I'm a bit concerned about myself.
Can I just comment on that?
Yeah, please do.
Just on that one, in terms of the neighbourhood plan, which of course will be part of the development framework if it gets through referendum, under the Environment and Sustainable Design vision, we do have a strategy. It's not called a design code, but a design strategy policy, whereby all major developments need to meet a certain number of things, and the idea behind that is to make sure they're visually appealing and designed to the highest quality and reflect the character of whatever area it's going in. And within that we do have a number of kind of sub-points that I think cover off lots of the things that you've mentioned there. So I think assuming that if the neighbourhood plan becomes a development framework, then we are kind of having an influence over that.
It's very, very good to have that, but you have a design code for a particular site, and that design code is actually the code for that, how that site will be built out. That's all. So you know, it is a specific, you know, and the rural edge, you know, all developments will have sort of natural treatments, you know, wooden, you know, sort of bars, you know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
within the centre, you shall have X number. The street designs will be, you know, you'll have, you know, Batford is renowned for like having sort of quite wide streets with boulevards, you know, trees up on the highway. You know, it's actually, I love that estate. It was, you know, homes built for heroes. They're solid houses. They've got lots of open space. You know, it would be nice to actually get some kind of extension of that or reflected in the new development. Some of the development I'll be dealing with is appalling. It is really appalling, and if you have no control as to a specific design code for that site, ultimately you can't, you have no control. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that one. There are things with the, there's things that I don't actually agree with here, but let's go to the next one. Okay, minimum 40% affordable housing. I like that. That's good. But I'm worried again about to meet local needs. So we're meeting local needs of the district, or we're meeting local needs of Harpenden. Now another. I work a lot with these community land trusts, which are actually at parish council level, and they engage with the community land trust, and they actually have a needs assessment, local needs, and those local people have first chance at those sites before, or those dwellings before they're offered to other people within the district. So I think that, you know, that's a great advantage of these community land trusts, because actually local communities do have control. And going back to the first one, it says master plan development led by the council in collaboration with local communities, landowners and other stakeholders. I don't understand how that's going to be rolled out, because unless you have this community land trust, which communities are actually a part of, it's a vehicle for them to actually shape those sites, we're just going to be left with a statement of community involvement saying, yes, this is our master plan, we're going to have an exhibition, bring the community in to have a look at it, and then we'll tinker with it. I don't consider that the essence of collaboration myself. But I don't expect you to sort of take those things on board, but I'm just saying how we could evolve, how Harpenden could evolve with us having more of control how it evolves, rather than leaving it to the district. No offence, I'm quite sure the district are going to do a fantastic job, but I would like more control over local issues myself. Again, it's saying about strategic open space. Are we to lose the Porters Hill Play Park? A bit concerned about that because early indications were that that was actually being included within the master plan with the drawings that I've seen initially. We were going to lose the Porters Hill Play Park. Not really keen about losing that, but I'm not sure. We don't actually know the site acreage, do we? We don't know how many hectares that area is. We don't know where the open spaces are going to be. Are they going to be accessible to the existing communities? Don't know. So transport networks, this is a big worry about. I think everyone joins with me. I couldn't get through the Lower Luton Road on Sunday because of it was flooded. They've managed to mitigate the flooding on the Westfield Road junction, but by St Martin's Close, it was both carriages were underwater, and then further up to Luton likewise. So we have a massive problem with flooding on that road. We've got a massive problem with congestion, with traffic, and I don't think the point 11 transport network, including walking, cycling links and public transport services upgrades and improvements, I think that's quite a weak. I'd rather something more substantive. David Williams has said it's the busiest B road in the county, the busiest B road in the county, and the second busiest in the country. That's alarming, isn't it? And what are we doing? We're going to, upward. At a minimum, we're putting up approximately 14,000 houses that will probably use that road to come, to access.
Sorry, can I correct you? Not
Sorry.
14,000, 1,400.
1,400, sorry. What we don't know, David.
No, they won't build 14,000.
Okay,
That's what we need to build as a district.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Fair enough.
So I'm not being pedantic.
No, I
but,
know. Sorry, big slip. So it does worry me that what they're proposing upgrades to, we all know, how did we come to the town council? We all drove. I'm not going to give my car up. I've tried to take the bus. They're irregular, they're very overpriced, and it takes you half an hour to go rumbling around all the side roads to pick everybody up before you get somewhere. Then you've got to cart all your washing or your shopping home. People aren't going to give up their cars unless there is a viable alternative, and I just can't see this happening. Without sort of, they can't even widen the Lower Luton Road at any point, to make it, more attractive. All the mitigation. They've taken most of the traffic calming out to enable the school to go on the site. It is a big worry, because all those roads, all that development is coming out via Bowers Heath Road, possibly, I don't know, Pickford Hill, Porters Hill, Common Lane, and they're the worst areas. People stopping off at the post office, not post office, the Tesco's petrol station. And I just don't think this policy is robust enough to deal with it. Then there's tailbacks all the way to Luton, and then there's tailbacks. I've sat on outside Corrie White Road for an hour because of the roundabout, the congestion at that roundabout coming out of Wheat Hampstead. You're just stuck there. So I would call for maybe a bypass link. But that's not going to happen, is it? Not unless we try and move this problem. Well, no, there's no money, but even like a
obviously there will be a substantial 106 payment for whichever development takes place, but obviously, which I've already been assured is already been thought of, but not enough to build a bypass.
So it says transport network including walking, cycling links and public transport services upgrades and improvements. So is that improvements to public transport?
I don't know where it's to.
So again, that's very woolly. Yeah, exactly. I would rather that. Is it like public transport improvements, or is it transport network improvements? Doesn't look like it. So really and truly, it doesn't look like there's going to be any transport network improvements at all. I think only walking and cycling links.
well, we've got no power collector in the county anyway, so
Yes,
you know,
yes and
buses
no.
as such.
Yes and no. You know, we could ask for
obviously we could spend ask for it on
improvements
the
on
106
certain
money,
junctions.
ask for the money for the 106 money to be used towards part of
Well, it
it.
would, yeah.
But I can't see as laying on buses, you know, or the developer laying on buses to provide a transport strategy. But
Does it go far enough, do we think? Does that
well,
policy objective
I
go
don't
far
know
enough?
until the whichever developer comes onto the site or comes up with a plan. I don't know what, you know, with any plan, and this is the third local plan we've actually had for St Albans. You know, the first two died sadly, and this is the third one that we've had. And in the Greenbelt Review, both these sites were picked, and indeed all the other sites in St Albans to reach the 14,000 houses figure.
Which might be reduced.
Well, it could be reduced if government reduced it.
Possibly.
It could. I mean, there is, you know, this is the same conversation under a different sphere, obviously, that we had regarding the development on the Oakland site, because there's no public transport there other than down Hatfield Road to Hatfield or to St Albans going the other way. You know, there's no public transport on the site, so you know there's only 360 houses. So anyway, I agree with your thoughts, but I think I think because everything's so broad in this plan at the moment, we can only ask for our considerations, and indeed we mentioned here in the initial thoughts, that we need to do it. Obviously, the parking in the centre of the town, in the town centre here, is under major review at the moment, and we are in the process of hopefully going to sort something out.
That's jolly good.
Whether it be an XLR on Station, an XLR on Bowers Way, and we've got another 85 spaces coming behind us here. We can only do that bit. That's what we have control
Absolutely,
over.
but we could ask. You know, we've got this. You know, we're being asked for our views.
Yeah,
It doesn't harm us, asking for this.
Yeah.
They can only say no.
No,
You see what I
I'm
mean?
sympathetic
Yeah.
with your thoughts. I don't know how we can actually put it in
But I'm
the...
pragmatic, David. I know that what we'll end up with is precisely
Well,
what we've got on the
yes
screen.
and no. I mean,
But,
I've sat on Plants North for 9 years now at District, so I've gone through it all, don't worry.
Yeah, it's not
in
really
this
plan-led,
area.
is it? Let's face it, it's all developer-led at the moment. This is
Well, it is, because we haven't got a 5-year land supply, and that is what they attack us.
we don't
Every
have-
meeting I get attacked. Sorry, please go.
Just on that one, what's useful, so we do have in our draft response at the moment that I think reflects your point, Councillor James, around asking for more specific details on both broad locations.
I've thoroughly. Can I just remind you that it's, I think it's North East Harpenden is, it's not 9, it's 7. I think. S67, is it? It's not 9, I don't think. Anyway,
Right,
check that, if
I'll
you can
check
check that, yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I would just suggest based on that, in relation to the North East Harpenden, where we talk about Lower Luton Road and Station Road, perhaps we need to also mention other local roads in that as well.
Yeah.
The same that we do the North West, just to pick
Yeah,
up
got
that
Throwsend Lane
point
is,
about those others.
you know, woefully inadequate. And that's got the same plug and play policy as ours, really.
Yeah.
So, okay, you mentioned a very important point, actually, David, about the impact on the town centre. There's no mention of providing a neighbourhood centre within this policy, which I think is also ill conceived
Sorry,
as well.
a
A neighbourhood centre, or they're saying that Batford has a local centre, which is like Southdown local centre. But if you compare and contrast both of those local centres, they're woefully, the backward one is woefully inadequate. For once it's, for one thing, it's separated by this strategic highway, which is the Lower Luton Road. So, if you're expecting people in this 50 plus, over 50s, development, to be walking down to the local centre, no, they won't be. Everyone's going to have to trawl to Harpenden to get to the dentist, to get to the doctors, to get to anything that's not a convenience shop, really. So this is what we've been going on about, for better expression. Backward Community Action Group has been desperate for a chemist, for doctors, for a dentist.
I thought there was somewhere that said local. I read somewhere about local
Not in the
medical.
policy. It talks about a community facilities.
It's as part of the development.
Yeah. Don't you think that would be an idea for future-proof?
I don't know. I
So,
read it somewhere.
just on that one, Chair, the reference to the policy set out under each of the board locations, both of them have got a line which says sufficient assets to provide sustainable management of community facilities, open spaces and park lands. So the community facilities element of that.
Oh,
That's what I read.
where are they?
For me, I read that to take the kind of the neighbourhood centre type approach.
But there isn't, without a neighbourhood centre being in black and white, I wouldn't assume anything. They might be saying facilities as being a scout hut that they're putting up on the public open space. It doesn't say anything about healthcare in that policy. So everyone again is going to be getting in their car and going to Harpenden, and we all know that the doctors and the dentists over there are oversubscribed and you have to wait ages for an appointment. Again, it's, I'm not criticising anyone here, but there's this idea of having a sustainable
It's
community,
got to have,
but it's not,
the
it's
other
not
thing I
actually
couldn't see,
putting...
it's got to have 2 schools, which we need to build on Greenbelt land.
Yeah. But that's reflected in most of the broad locations policies. I think there's one in St Albans that's one of them is actually going to have a neighbourhood centre. But the cumulative impact, considering the amount of development that's going on in both north and east, is more than what is going on in that particular broad location, which is going to have a neighbourhood centre. It's just trying to future-proof communities so that they can be sustainable, really.
So it alludes later on, or it talks about under Chapter 3, it talks about broad locations having new local centres.
Yeah, some of them have local centres. If you read some of the broad locations, they do have local centres in the policy.
Yeah.
But they've kind of missed that out on ours.
So is it specified in the...
So in some of the broad locations, the ones in St Albans, I don't have it with me. Some of them of over 1,000 have got a neighbourhood plan, a neighbourhood centre or a local centre within that shopping list, as it were.
So the example there, so East St Albans,
Yes.
it's got a policy that says new neighbourhood centre, including commercial development opportunities.
Because I think Anne raises a very good point. We do need facilities if they're expanding that drastically. You would want to be able to walk to a doctor, to a
Especially
dentist.
if you're asking for a care home and over 50s, you can't expect people to stand in the rain at the bus stop waiting for a bus to take you into Harpenden.
And you won't walk it, will you?
No, you won't walk it, so you'll get the bus and then you'll have, we're going to have more parking, but as soon as you have more parking, funny enough, it's all allocated, isn't it? So that is another concern to me.
Just that, that one.
I think this is our role, isn't it? We're safeguarding
only
half
say
of them
no.
as much as we possibly can.
If we don't ask, we don't get.
Yeah, so, and the comments in the draft that I put in relation to community assets and having local ownership of them was put together on the basis of thinking about a neighbourhood centre.
Yeah, but if it's not in
You're
the
quite right in there, it's not
it's not in the
specific
policy,
under the
we
proposals.
can't determine it, can we, on that
Yeah.
basis?
So the committee could request, as part of our feedback, to add in that there is a line that's similar to many of the other broad locations that says a new neighbourhood centre, including commercial development opportunities. We would like to see that reflected
Yeah,
I do that,
in the
yeah.
proposals for both ours as well.
Yeah.
And also perhaps like healthcare, rather than business opportunity. Is it business opportunity?
Sorry, I'm not
Commercial.
sorry.
Commercial. So
Mhm.
if you had like a provision of health, you know, what would it be? D1, D2, D1, or a mix of uses, so that you could have, you know,
Yeah.
A1, A2, and then C, you know, C3 obviously, D1.
Yeah. So we could say with a mix of uses, with a mix of appropriate uses.
Yeah, to meet the needs of a sustainable community.
That's
Yeah.
a good way of pushing it.
Yeah, I was going to say that reflects the social infrastructure and community facilities set out in the neighbourhood plan, because that covers the kind of community centres. It incorporates healthcare.
Absolutely, because at the moment they're getting away with it. A community facility could be anything.
Yeah.
Could
So
be a bus shelter, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So I could add a line in associated to that, so requesting that included within both broad location proposals is a line that says we would like, we need to have a neighbourhood centre in there with appropriate or mixed use of social infrastructure community facilities that are appropriate to that particular area, or along those kind of lines,
To
things
make
like
it,
that.
to make them, I'm not saying this, but to make a sort of them discrete
Yeah,
areas where they have the social infrastructure they need.
yeah,
So,
yeah, okay. So I'll draft that.
And there's something else that might be of interest as well, is with regards to parking on those estates. I've noticed the introduction of a lot of tandem parking within like big housing estates, and they are wrong. Because you can get 3 spaces. Well, ultimately you get, so you've got your house here, and then you've got 1 parking space, 2 parking spaces, 3 parking spaces, and that's your garden. So it's and especially when the network is going to be like home zones, it's going to be quite sort of narrow, and therefore you've got 3 cars all backing out. So a lot of districts now are outlawing them, basically.
because they just don't work.
They don't want tandem parking because it's a nightmare. You should have a garage and then 1 in front. I'm done.
Oh, they don't want.
Well, I have, but I don't. I think ultimately they're from a different perspective that you probably wouldn't want to include or give credence to.
Oh no, give it a go.
No, honestly, I'm going to be here for hours otherwise. It's general to. But no, I think they're the salient points that I would like the town council to consider in both board locations. But, then we've got more control.
Neighbourhood transport and
Yeah, so I think it does. So we can certainly add the thing in around the proposals and neighbourhood centres as we've just discussed there. I guess the question back to the committee around the design code points and whether we wanted to add anything in there on the broad locations element that goes beyond what we've said in the neighbourhood plan around design strategy.
It does mention about design reviews. They may be subject to a design review. I've been to design reviews and they all welcome like a design code. So you've got some kind of coherent development.
we can't refer them to our neighbourhood plan code then.
Well, essentially our neighbourhood plan, if it's through referendum, it will be relevant anyway, because when these come forward for planning applications, they will have to meet these policies. So, which is why the kind of our response has been directly linked into the neighbourhood plan to make that the case. But I guess what Councillor James is saying there, the design code goes kind of 1 step further. It's very specific to each broad location, isn't it? So whether we could say something about design code specifically, or we could home in on the point around, which I think is really about local people having the opportunity to shape and influence what they look like as well, which is what the design strategy was aimed to do within the neighbourhood plan. That's good. The idea of that is it gives the town council early sight on these things, in order for us to work with the community to put the views forward and influence at the earliest level, rather than having something that presented. So we could add something in about that.
Does that feel robust enough, or is that still a bit?
Well, I think it's helpful to everyone. It's a blueprint. It's blueprint planning, isn't it? You've got your sites come forward. You've got a specific set of codes by which you want that development to look like at the end, to have, whether you want fruit trees in the, along the highway verges, or do you see what I mean? That the frontages, should have this kind of treatment. The ones, the urban edges could be higher density. The paving, the materials on the country, towards the countryside. Again, a different kind of treatment, and of course, lower density towards the sort of countryside edge, and higher density in the middle. At the moment, you don't have any of that control.
Well, I think the developer has indicated, this was just an off-the-cuff conversation, has indicated they would like to know what we as a town would like in any proposed development. And I think they want to come. They want to come and talk, and that was how we got it as as an interest, that they said nothing concrete, but they'd like an idea. And I think what Councillor James has suggested, I think I'd be happy to look forward to them as and when they approached us for a chat about their thoughts.
Well, they are going to have to go through two hoops, aren't they? They're going to have to go through our neighbourhood plan and the local plan.
Yep.
So we want to make it as clear as possible.
Well, they'll have to go through that, and they'll then have to go through, well, not only district, but it'll become an inspector because they're building in the green belt. So therefore, it'll be it'll be a long, it'll be a long drawn out. But
we are giving some kind of clear direction, I think, through the neighbourhood plan, the kinds of things that we need and what they should look like and what.
I think what they've tried to do, as a generality, they've tried to share this housing need throughout the district. I know Redbourne's had a large chunk, and I know South of St Albans has. But this I think is the way that they've looked at.
Because again, in our neighbourhood plan, we say that we have a need for smaller dwellings. We don't need any more executive homes. We're making it as clear as we can.
I think builders have suddenly realised they can't sell 6-bedroom houses, a number that have been on the market for more than a year yet.
Not so easy.
They've got big problems.
Yeah.
So, I'm sympathetic to what's been put forward by so far. I think perhaps if we could put a finite number on the development, whether we're allowed to, I don't know. I can't see the reason why not. We can suggest 40, so that we don't get stitched up as such. And the thoughts towards the when we come round to the 106 money, I think it needs to be decided very carefully on what the needs are. It will have as I mentioned earlier, it will have a junior and infant school in both developments. There's enough demand for both of them. So they both will get, and obviously they'll feed into the new secondary school.
And obviously that would enhance the need for people just being able to walk to a doctor's, to a dentist, and
And
This is
I,
the
I
end.
think this community centre, I think, you know, certainly in the larger development is a must, which everybody in Batford would have the advantage of.
It's just a question, isn't it, of going through and just thinking now, which, if you were really sort of bloody-minded, how could you take this in a different direction? So if it's not clear enough that this, we want the dentist, we want the doctor, and if there's, you know, they might just give us a bus shelter, it's that kind of language.
No, I think, well, I mean, I can only think of a similar development being Jersey Farm in St Albans, which eventually got a pub, got newsagents, got a doctor's, and got a chemist.
But then you've got the classic example, haven't you, up north west Harpenden, was where all the building development was done in stages, so no shop.
Yeah, but that was
unfortunately
unfortunately because it was done with a No 106 money.
Yeah.
That was the tragic there, because we didn't have
Future-proof your policies so that
No.
The thing is, we don't know what's in store in the future. I have this vision that this is only the beginning of the housing extension on to the north and in the east, because okay, so we're on the expansive boundary, but you know, when it comes to the next phase of land supply, it's possible that this is going to get hit as well. So, you know, ultimately you want to make sure that future generations are going to have access to, you know, well-defined communities.
No, I agree. You know.
Okay, so just so I'm completely clear in terms of amendments, so I've got the neighbourhood centre point. I think we're agreeing that you'd like to put something in around the design discussion. And then David, you mentioned there around talking about numbers again on development. So that was one of the early points around it's a minimum number quoted. So do we want to say that we should actually up to?
Yes,
It's up
I
to
think
committee,
so.
you'd agree?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that's 3 amendments that I'll make to this response then.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we can expect any employment locations as such, other than the community centre, because I think.
Well, we've still got the Cold Harbour Lane.
Yeah.
Yep. And indeed the Batford Mills. Keep wanted to extend to one thing there.
Sorry, Chair, there was one other, the minor amendment as
Yeah.
well, the other local roads added on to the
Yes, that's
policy
right.
Yeah.
for North East.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
So those are the 4 changes.
So are we all happy with that? I've tried to
Yeah.
be as
No,
sympathetic and I'm grateful for Anne's input,
Yeah.
because obviously she looks at this all full time, and
the importance of language, isn't it?
yes, indeed, and I mean I looked at it in both heads yesterday. I was thinking more of the schools. I did look at, as you said, at the retail, because I know how important the Jersey Farm was. You know, I have to refer to something I know quite a lot about. I lived there for 40 years. You know, it's and indeed Marshalswick, how it Marshalswick centre in its own right. Was that? Having said that, Marshalswick hasn't got a dentist. The doctors, but it hasn't got a dentist. No. Used to have one upstairs, he's moved. But no, so, but having said that, and indeed the thought of that many people being local, it would come into the town. It would only, I think in the future, it would only make the town even more vibrant with the, as you said, you find somewhere for everybody to park. I think it's to the advantage of everybody really for it to be. Obviously the Luton Road development, the Bloomfield Road development as I referred to it, does have a few shops at the bottom, from Tesco's to hairdressers to what have you.
But I don't think there'd be any harm in asking for the same level of facilities for that site as well?
No, I don't think it would get as much as the Batford
No.
one, because the Batford one hasn't got really got anything other than the fish and chip shop and the co-op. I can't think what else is in that parade. Tesco's
So
opposite.
there's the co-op.
The co-op is the fish and chip shop. What else is
There's
there?
a small hairdresser, but again, there's nowhere
Oh, there's a hairdresser.
to park.
Yeah, so it's got, no, so it would, you know, a centre certainly at the back of, mean going uphill. But no, somewhere in that development, I'm absolutely sympathetic with you. The thoughts that it could be incorporated with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, sort of on the,
Fine, so yeah, I've got 4 clear amendments there to make.
Nothing else you want to?
No,
No.
everything else I think can just go with my usual response.
okay, dokie.